What a great weekend of football for me. Falcons won, Cougars won, and I might just win my fantasy football game. Finally go to 2-4. Obviously, my opponent has three players left, which is a tight end, a kicker, and a defense, but I'm not too worried. Anyways, welcome back to Grizzly Talks Football. We got Week 7 college football reactions and the Week 8 EP poll reaction that came out yesterday. Not too much happened. There were one or two upsets that happened this week, but some ranked matchups that were very watchable. One was like a bloodbath, one was a disaster. There was also a big noon kickoff that really wowed everybody in the state of Utah. We're gonna get all to that right away. But if you haven't already, make sure you hit the red subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure to hit the bell so you don't miss a video. Anyways, let's get straight to it. The first game we're going to be talking about is the college game day in Hudson Stadium in Eugene between Ohio State and Oregon, a top 3 clash that was won by Oregon 32-31. This game was definitely worth the hype, and I can see why. Both quarterbacks played amazing. Offenses were scoring right and left, and it came down to a Will Howard miscue on the time. The clock read 0 and he tried to slide. That was a bad move. Other than that, it was pretty much an even game besides a fumble that they lost. Well, with Will Howard throwing 326 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Dylan Gabriel also throwing 341 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both quarterbacks had 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown each. This was a great battle. The rushing game was led by Trevion Henderson. Quinshon Jenkins had a touchdown, so did Will Howard, like I said before. And receiving was led by Emeka Egbuka, who had 10 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown, and also Jeremiah Smith, who had 9 for 100 at a score. Oregon's rushing game was led by Jordan James, who had 115 yards and a touchdown, but Dylan Gabriel, 4 carries for 32 yards, 8 yards a carry, and a score. And receiving was led by Evan Stewart, who had 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. Shit. And Tez Johnson was 7 catches, 75 yards, with another score of his own. Ohio State's defense didn't get a sack, but they did get 5 pass defenses by Caleb Downs, who had a solid game. Same with Cody Simon. Man, 2 pass defenses by Downs. Man, defense, it was really not much about the defense. It was really more about the offense is going to work. And as for Oregon's defense, Derek Harmon had the only turnover of the game with a forced fumble and a recovery. 1 sack in the game by Matayo Uiagalelei. There was also Tajim Johnson, Kobe Savage, Devin Jackson, and Brandon Johnson, who had solid games, along with Uiagalelei and Harmon. Man, this was just a battle. Great win, Oregon. Very nice win. You got the best win in the country right now. Up next, we have the big new kickoff game between Arizona and BYU. Obviously, I don't know what's going on with that glitch down there, but Arizona is not 20th. They are unranked. BYU is 14th. And BYU remains unbeaten, 6-0, with a big win, 41-19 at home. I gotta say, not everybody saw this coming. Even I didn't see it coming. Defense played well, and offense played just enough to win. Crazy stuff. Obviously in the game, Noah Fafita had 275 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Not very good at all. But then Jake Ritzlove, sure, he had 56.3% completions, but he had 218 yards, prevented any interceptions. He even had 2 touchdowns in the game, with Parker Kingston even throwing a 33-yard score. Besides the touchdown by Quali Conley, the rushing game was kind of non-existent. You could say Kedrick Riscano had 48 rushing yards, 5.3 yards, not saying much though. And receiving was obviously led by Tetoro McMillan. I'm hoping I did not butcher that. I think I did. And the only touchdown on the receiving game was Montana. I can't really pronounce his name. And the rushing game had a pretty solid game. I saw it was Hinkley Rapati, not Nawahine, who had a fumble. It was Hinkley Rapati who had the fumble. LJ Martin had the only rushing touchdown in the game. And he even had a receiving touchdown. Man, he had a game. And receiving was led by Darius Lassiter with 5 catches for 86 yards. I could tell you he is our deep threat. And also Chase Roberts had 5 catches, 61 yards and a score. And Parker Kingston threw for a touchdown and caught a touchdown. Man. As far as Arizona's defense goes, I mean, there was really one turnover in the game for Arizona's defense. Like, Genesis Smith had a forced fumble with Free recovering. Only one pass defense by Carnley. And 1, 2, 3 tackles were lost. Dominic Lesio had one. There was a solid game from Smith. There was also Owen Goss and Dalton Johnson had pretty big games, but that was it. And we forced 4 turnovers of our own. We had Isaiah Glasker with a pick 6 on the game. And he even had a forced fumble on a strip sack, I'm very sure. And then Harrison Taggart had a fumble recovery. I remember that Taggart last name. That was used to be a Florida State coach. And even there was also picks by Tanner Wall and Jacob Robinson. Tyler Batty had himself a game as well, including Kruk Wakely as well. Like, Joshua Singh had a tackle for loss. Like, 2 other pass deflections by Mark Collins and Evan Johnson. Like, we had a very good game defensively. Let me just say, we have, like, one of the best defenses in the Big 12, let alone the country. Man, good win, BYU, and hopefully you could get a Friday night win against Oklahoma State. I'm rooting for y'all. Up next, we had Texas absolutely decimating Oklahoma and a Red River... Man... Red River rivalry turned into a Red River rampage for the Longhorns. 34-3 was the final score. What in the world happened, Oklahoma? Like, this was supposed to be a rivalry game and you put up 3 points? 3. All I can get from this game was that Michael Hawkins did not have a very good game. 1930 for 148 and no touchdowns at all, no picks. Quinn Ewers, like... Arch Manning is the future of that Texas Longhorns team, but Quinn Ewers, man, he kind of struggled a little bit. 20 of 29 for 198 yards, but he had a touchdown and a pick. Jeez. I mean, Oklahoma's rushing offense was pretty much non-existent, and yeah, the lead receiver by a long shot was Zion Kearney with 4 for 45. At least Texas had some good rushing game. Trey Wisner had 118 yards and touchdown. The other rushing touchdown by Quinn Ewers. And the only receiving touchdown was by Gunnar Helm, who had 5 catches and 91 yards in a score, and Isaiah Bond only having 1 catch in the game. Oh, and I forgot that Silas Bolden had a 36-yard rushing touchdown as well. As far as Oklahoma's defense, they did force 1 interception by Billy Bowman, a forced fumble by Spears Jennings. They got to the quarterback 1 time. Ethan Downs was responsible for the sack. There was also solid games from Eli Bowen, Kip Lewis, and Denny Stutzman. As for Texas's defense, they got to the quarterback 6 times. Anthony Hill had a forced fumble and 2 sacks with double-digit tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss for Colin Simmons, a forced fumble and a fumble recovery for Derek Williams Jr., and also a recovery by Vernon Broughton. There's also 4 more sacks by guys who I haven't mentioned. Man, Texas absolutely decimated the Sooners. This is the kind of performance you expect from the #1 team in the country, not losing to a team named Vanderbilt. Up next is the other top 25 matchup between Ole Miss and LSU that went to overtime with LSU winning 29-26. I'll be honest, I was on College Pick'em and I picked LSU to win this game, so man was I happy that the Tigers won. I mean, Jackson Dart had an okay game with 24-42, 284 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But Garrett Nussmeier, I'm calling him that. I don't think it's that pronunciation. It might be Nussmeier, but do let me know how you pronounce that name. 22 of 51, 43%. But he had 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He kind of pulled a Brett Favre, but man, he could sling the rock. Rushing was led by Ulysses Bentley, who had 107 yards in a score, with receiving led by Caden Lee with 9 catches, 132 yards, and the only receiving touchdown by Trey Harris, who had 7 catches, 102 yards in a score. As for LSU's rushing offense, not much to really show for, and the receiving game was really where it's at. Kyron Lacey had 5 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown, proving he can be a very reliable receiver. Aaron Anderson also had a touchdown with 3 catches, 81 yards, and Trey'Dez Green even had a score of his own. Despite not getting to Nussmeier 1 time, they did pick him off twice with Jamarius Brown and Trey Amos, and they had a ton of defensive passes. My goodness, like one guy had 5 at Jaden Candy, and there was also Trey Amos with 3. And also solid games from Chris Paul Jr., Trey Washington, TJ Dudley, and Center and Perkins. But LSU's defense sat Jackson Dart 6 total times in this game. There was an interception by Zy Alexander. There were also 2 forced fumbles by Weeks and Burns. Man, Major Burns and Weeks with a solid game. Brandon Swinson having 2 sacks. Man, both these defenses played extremely well. This is a massive win for LSU after the bad game against USC. They pulled up 5 straight wins. Well done, Tigers. I'll probably include at least one more game in this one because there was only one ranked versus unranked upset this week. And that was on Friday night between Utah and Arizona State with a score of 27-19. First Arizona, now Arizona State, Utah? What is going on? And let me just say, Cam Rising looked like hot ass with his injury. Like 16 of 37, no touchdowns, 200 yards, and 3 picks. God. And then Sam Leavitt with 11 of 18. He didn't even have to throw that much. 154 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Obviously, both teams had to go to their run game. Micah Bernard led the team in rushing with 129 yards and a touchdown, doing his thing. And he almost led the team in receiving as well with 5 catches for 61. That was led by Dorian Singer, who had 4 catches for 75 yards. And as for Arizona State, rushing was led by Cameron Scadabo with 158 yards, 7.2 yards a carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Shit. Jeff Sims had also had a rushing touchdown, and receiving was led by Jordan Tyson with 5 catches, 84 yards, and a score. Utah's defense had a sack and a pick by Junior Tafuna, 3 pass defenses, not much to really show for Utah's defense. Well, except for Orlando Barton and Rabbit Evans, Logan Fano, and Tal Johnson having some solid games. But Arizona State's defense, oh dear. Caleb McCullough, absolute amazing game. 12 tackles, 2 picks, with Keith Abney getting the other interception. They got to Cam Rising twice. Prince Dorpa had 1 sack, and there was also Swanson and Clark who combined for a sack. Jordan Crook also had a solid game, so did Xavier Alford. Man. The rushing game completely carried Utah, but it was Arizona State's defense that really shut them down. And just like that, Arizona State's 5-1. Utah is probably going to be out of the rankings with a 4-2 record. And let me just say, Cam Rising should have just tried his chance in the NFL. Why did he have to stay another year? He literally turned into Luke Staley 2.0. Not much really happened besides the games I already talked about, but I am going to talk about one more game. This was the home game for Alabama and Tuscaloosa against South Carolina. Why did I want to talk about this game? The fact that both of these teams did not want to win this game at all. Alabama kept trying to hand the win to South Carolina. South Carolina was like, nope, you take it. You earned this. No, they didn't. Alabama handed you a victory on a silver platter, and you chose to deny it? Really? Your first victory against Alabama since 2010, and you don't take it? Oh yeah, I saw the ending of the game. South Carolina recovered an onside kick after they failed a 2-point conversion to tie the game, and they still lost. Tulane did the same thing, recovered an onside kick, came up short, not because of an interception, but because they were just inches away from moving the chains and getting a new set of downs. South Carolina just threw a bad pass for an interception that sealed the game. Don't let the stat line fool you by Norris Sellers. 23-31, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He was solid all game, but then in the clutch moments, he just fumbled the game away. Literally. And then what happened to Jalen Milroe? He had 200 yards, 60 and 23, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Defense bailed them out, but they still couldn't do anything. As far as rushing goes, I think Rocket Sanders should have gotten a lot more carries this game if it wasn't for South Carolina's absolute garbage play calling. 78 yards and a touchdown on 16 carries. He should have had 20 to 25 carries in this game. He would have won y'all the game. But no, you chose to throw it. And then Mazeo Bennett Jr. and Nick Harper had the only touchdowns on the receiving game. Rushing game for Alabama was led by Jalen Milroe, who had 2 rushing touchdowns on 36 yards. Besides the 3 touchdowns, yardage-wise, it wasn't really good. Justice Haynes had himself a touchdown. And receiving was led by Jeremy Bernard with 4 catches for 89 yards and a score. South Carolina's defense got themselves 2 picks and even 4 sacks on the game. Kyle Kennard did his thing. Demetrius Knight and Tonka Hemingway having sacks. Jalen Kilgore and O'Donnell Fortune, what a name, got interceptions. And there was also DQ Smith who had a solid game, and Nick Emenwari. Defense of South Carolina gave them so many chances, but the offense decided, nope, we are going to get this game to Bama no matter what happens. Obviously, South Carolina had 4 turnovers in this game, 1 pick by Damani Jackson that was at the end of the game, 2 forced fumbles by Jahad Campbell and Devontae Smith, recovered by Malachi Moore and Lebu Silverton. There was also another forced fumble by somebody not in this list, but Keanu Ka had a fumble recovery as well. There was also a couple sacks. I counted 4 of them. There was also a good game by Keon Sabb and Deontay Lawson, along with Justin Jefferson. Credit to both defenses for playing well, but man, Bama, you have a lot to talk to Nick Saban about, because this was disappointing 2 weeks in a row. Before we get to the AP poll, we're going to be looking at the projected college game day, in my eyes, for Week 8, which is going to be number 5 Georgia traveling to Austin to play the top-ranked Texas Longhorns. This is a good bounce-back game for Georgia after the disappointing performance against Alabama, and then keeping Mississippi State and Auburn in games that they should not have been. As for Texas, Quinn Ewers could play well if he plays next week on Saturday, but I don't really see it. I see Arch Manning having a better game than him, but it's going to be a tough game to predict. But you know what? I'm all about the hype train, so yep, hook 'em horns! Texas wins this game at home. And of course, to end this episode, I'm going to be looking at Week 8's AP Top 25 poll. We got top 5. Those are the same top 5 teams that I feel like should be there. Texas and Oregon, I am fine with being the top 2 teams in the country. But the fact that Ohio State is behind Georgia, same with Penn State, is fucking ridiculous. Like, Georgia should be 3, Penn State should be 4, Ohio State should be 5 in my eyes. But I'm not the one who decides these polls. Miami at 6 is fine. Bama at 7 is a fucking joke. Like, they don't drop after beating the team at home by 2 points that they should be beaten by 20? Like, what are we doing here? Like, LSU had a better win than Alabama over South Carolina. LSU is doing really well. They are on a big hot streak. They should be ahead of Bama. LSU at 7, Bama at 8. Iowa State at 9 is crazy stuff. First time in the top 10 since 2021. And Clemson's in the top 10 as well. I'm fine with that as well. And also Tennessee at 11. Man, they dropped off bad after a close win over Florida. Notre Dame goes to 12. That's fine. BYU at 13. A&M at 14. And Boise State is back with a ranking of 15. I'm fine with that. 11 through 15. On to the 16 through 25. We got Indiana at 16. That's fine. Kansas State at 17. That's fine with me as well. They've done really well ever since they lost to us by 30. Ole Miss dropping to 18 is absolutely crazy. Like, they had a close loss to LSU, but they dropped 9 spots. They dropped more spots than the amount of points they lost to LSU by. Like, that's crazy. They should have at least gone to, like, top 15 or something like that. Maybe even 11. But I'm not the judge of that. Missouri at 19, that's fine. Pitt at 20 is fine. SMU goes 4 spots to 21. Crazy stuff, but hey, they're doing pretty good. Illinois is also ranked. Michigan at 24, and then Army and Navy in the same AP poll for the first time since 1960. Crazy stuff. We got Army at 23 and Navy at 25. Vanderbilt is the top vote getter of teams that did not make it to the top 25. I think they should be in over Michigan, but that's not my call. But this is a pretty respectable top 25. Anyways, that is going to do it for Grizzly Talks Football. And if you enjoyed this episode, again, make sure you leave a like. I'll leave the playlist in the description so that you are all caught up with every single episode in this series. Be sure to hit the red subscribe button, hit the bell so you don't miss a single video that I post. And I will see you guys next time for Week 6 NFL reactions. Peace.